Good evening. Welcome to the Mystery Matt M.O. Allegedly show. I am Sarah and this is Colleen. And we are going to be covering a new case, a complicated cold case. And actually, it's Colleen's case. And she's worked very hard on it. So I'm going to pass this over to you. And here's Panama Girls case number 006.
All right. So, like Sarah said, it's called the Panama Girls. It's actually the Dutch Girls of Panama. And it's you might have heard of it. And we're just going to do a bit of a dive into this one because there is a lot out there. So, in Panama, there's a little place called Boquete. And I hope I'm pronouncing that one correctly.
Hoity-toity.
Yeah. It's a little small place. It's got beautiful steep fields, pine forest, crystal clear rivers. And in fact, it actually was given the nickname of Little Switzerland because it's very reminiscent of Switzerland. It's a beautiful area. On April 1st, 2014, two young Dutch girls went for a hike, and what followed is now a mystery. Lizana Froon. Okay, let me say this correctly. Lizana Froon. I am so sorry.
Spell it out.
Lizana Froon was born on September 24th, 1991 in Netherlands. She was tall, athletic, a bit of an introvert, but she loved adventure and she really wanted to travel. She enjoyed mountaineering, skydiving, volleyball. She was really big into physical activities. She had actually just finished her degree in applied psychology and had a passion for photography. She really wanted to travel. That was her big thing.
A lot of us do.
And this
Not
was
all
where
of us get the opportunity.
Yes, and this was where she met Chris Kremers. Chris was born on August 9th, 1992, so just a little bit younger than Lizana. And she was also born in the Netherlands. She had a degree in cultural social education, which really sounds pretty cool, I gotta admit.
I'm not even sure if I know what it is.
I'm not really certain, truthfully, and I apologize, I did not look it up. So she just finished her degree, and her plan was to actually go back and get her art history degree. She wanted to go and study for that. She loved the theater and she'd done some acting. She was very outgoing and open, friendly, and caring. Everyone said she would do anything for anybody. So the two of them met while they were both working at a cafe in the Netherlands, and their interest in traveling caused them to bond very quickly. Their first plan was they wanted to go to Central America. And it took them about 6 months to save up the money, and they did this partially by moving in together. They managed to save up enough money to go, and they had their trip all planned. What they really wanted to do, they wanted to tour a little bit, and then they wanted to go and teach children, volunteer with a bunch of kids, teach them what they could, and also they wanted to learn Spanish. They had very little knowledge of Spanish. So they were hoping to kind of get enmeshed in the culture. So they had the trip all planned. They were going to be staying with a host family for a few weeks. Well, they taught at a local school in Boquete, and that was what their plan was. So on March 15th, 2014, they flew out of Amsterdam, and they were planning for 6 weeks. Their first 2 weeks there, they actually spent touring Panama. They met up with a few other Dutch tourists. They had a great time, lots of great pictures. Then they went on to Boquete, and they met their host family, and they'd even brought with them a whole bunch of toys and gifts for the kids to give to that they were teaching.
Yeah, that's very common, especially if you go to places like Cuba and stuff. The best way to tip your house, like your waitresses, or not your waitresses, your maids and stuff, is by leaving gifts. It could be dollar store, and they're more grateful for it because they don't have that stuff.
They don't have access to it.
They don't have access to it. So yeah, no, that's a very common thing. Actually better, I think.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So on Saturday, March 29th, 2014, the two women arrived in Boquete. They spent Sunday exploring, and they even went into the school that they were supposed to be working at that week. And that was when stuff kind of went wrong. They went in on March 31st, a Monday, and they found out the school told them, you're not supposed to start here for another week. So there was a lot of back and forth with the two women talking to people, trying to figure out, they were trying to find another place that they could volunteer at. In the end, they really couldn't find anything, so they decided to use the week to explore. And they also went to a local center, and they kind of looked into, could we get some Spanish classes? So here they are on March 31st. They have a whole week. No idea what to do. So they arranged with a local guide to go on a tour, and they went home, and they started off April 1st. So their big thing they want to do, so this area of Panama is close to the Continental Divide, and I actually had to find out what this meant because I didn't know. Do you know?
I know what it is. I don't know how to explain it.
Okay, so apparently it's where the watersheds will diverge, and one will go one direction and one will go another. So one is going down to this ocean, one's going down to that ocean.
Is it where the hemisphere splits?
I think it's like, I don't know much on that one. Anyway, it's the Continental Divide, and that is right outside of Boquete, and they really wanted to go to that. On the Continental Divide is the Mirador, which is right at the cusp, and it offers stunning views of the whole area. The main route to get up to it is called the Pianista Trail. And this actually takes you through what are called the cloud forests of the Green Mountain Highlands in Panama. The cloud forests are called that way because as you're going through the forest, you're actually walking through the clouds. It is breathtakingly beautiful. So on the morning of Tuesday, April 1st, they left the home of their host family. They went out and they actually met up with two other Dutch tourists, two gentlemen, and they had a nice brunch. And then they posted to Facebook that they planned to walk around Boquete a bit and then go up to the Mirador through the Pianista Trail. So that was where we kind of left them. There is some talk, there's been a few people have said that they actually, when they started to go for their hike, they took a local dog with them. Now this dog might have been owned by a restaurant owner, or it might have been the host family dog. There's a few different variations. Yeah. So what was said is that they took the dog with them on the hike. So yes.
The dog doesn't die.
The dog does not die. Okay. The dog does not die.
I'd be like, I gotta go outside for a minute.
In fact, that was actually what kind of first raised the alarm. The dog returned home that night without the women, and locals were like, something's not right. Mm-hmm. So on the morning of April 2nd, they had an appointment with a local guide who was supposed to take them for a good hike in a different area, but they didn't show up. So he went to go to their place looking for them. They weren't there. That will come into play in a little bit. And it was at that point that the alarm really started getting raised. The families these two young women were very responsible, very smart. They messaged and called their families every day. Right. But their families had not heard from them since the morning of April 1st. That's been over 24 hours. That was not like these girls at all. So April 2nd, the alarm was raised that something's wrong. On April 3rd, local residents began to search the ground. The authorities did an aerial search. Now, this point is actually contested. The Panama government says that they started the search on April 3rd. The locals say the government was not involved, that the only people doing the searching on those days was the locals who were looking for these girls, that the government had nothing to do with it. There was no aerial search, there was nothing else, is what the locals say.
Could a local with their own plane maybe perform a search that maybe wasn't really documented?
No. If a local had done it with their own plane, likely a local from that area does not have a plane.
Well, I'm just saying, you never know, right?
Right.
Drug runners and shit.
Nothing was heard for a few days. So on April 6th, the parents flew in from Netherlands. Mm-hmm. And with them came detectives, authorities, and dog search teams from the home country. And this was when the locals started noticing the Panama government getting involved too. It was on April 6th when the families became involved and international pressure was brought to bear. So after 10 days of searching, it was called off. And this was despite the family doing so much. The family, even Chris Kremer's parents, went on the hike themselves, went the route the girls would have taken, did everything they could. The families posted a reward of $30,000, which for somebody in Panama, that's like getting $500,000, but yet nothing came up. When the search was officially ended, the locals still kept looking. They wanted to find out what was going on. So now we skip forward about 10 weeks after they disappeared. On June 14th, 2014, Lizanne's backpack was discovered. It was about a 14-hour hike away from where they had disappeared, near the village of Alto Romero. It was in really good shape for being out for over 10 weeks, and it was mostly dry. The local woman who found it was a local indigenous population, and she was out tending a rice paddy, and she found it beside the river. She had been there the day before, and the bag was not there. So that one was kind of interesting. She immediately handed it into the police, and in it, there were 2 pairs of sunglasses, less than $100 of American money. There was a water bottle, Lizanne's insurance card, or it could have been her passport. There's been 2 different reports on that one. 2 bras, Lizanne's camera and SD card, and both of the women's phones. Kremer had an iPhone 4, and so Chris Kremer had an iPhone 4, and KremersFroon had a Samsung Galaxy S3. All the electronics were in working order, which doesn't go with the idea that it had been washed down the stream and had been out there for 10 weeks. Now, a few witnesses said that when the items were taken out of the backpack, they were actually inside of plastic bags. So that might have protected them.
That would make sense. Because
Yeah.
even if you go to like a theme park or something where there's water rides and you have your phone, you usually throw it in a plastic bag just to be on the safe side.
Yes.
Water resistant, yes, but...
So the backpack really was in amazing condition for being out in the elements that long. There was some wear on it. The plastic closures had some pretty deep scratches. One of the straps was loose, and a rectangular piece was missing from the top corner of the bag, but the edges were sharp, as if it had been cut with something. It wasn't ripped apart. It was
Clean cut.
It was a clean cut. Don't know why. Once the backpack was found, investigators, authorities immediately went back to the area where it was found and started searching more, and they started searching up the river. And that was when they started to turn up more evidence. A little bit up the river, Chris Kremer's jeans were found about a mile upstream. Some reports said that they were folded and zipped up on top of a rock. Others say they were floating in the river. It's pretty difficult to know what happened. Near the jeans, Chris Kremer's empty boot was found. So this is when they start looking all over the place for stuff.
So did they involve law enforcement at this point again?
So what happened, and it's really difficult. The problem is most of the reports are in, they're in the Panama country language, Spanish, I'm going to say. They're pretty difficult to understand. They haven't really been translated. What isn't in Spanish is in Dutch. So the Panama authorities actually sent pretty much all the evidence they gathered. They sent off to Dutch authorities to test.
Right.
The 2 did work quite a bit back and forth. But after they found Chris Kremer's jeans and her boot, they kept finding a bunch of other things. All in all, around 33 bone fragments were found over the next 2 months. And this was scattered throughout a small area. These included a piece of Lizanne's pelvis that was broken, and one of her boots, and this boot still had her foot in it.
Oh.
The foot actually had shown breaks of the bones of the foot, but what was odd was that the foot had been cleanly severed. It wasn't ripped off, it was severed.
Basically answered my question. I was going to say, how do we know that maybe it was an animal attack?
This is, sweetie, this one goes so much. I've only touched on stuff so far.
Well, I guess we can rule out animal attack because they don't use bone saws to.
That was it. It was cleanly severed. The there were some bone fragments of Chris found nearby, of Chris Kremer's, and there were also fragments from 3 other unidentified persons were mixed in with these. The other interesting thing, this one's going to get you. Lizanne's remains still had skin attached to the bones, but Chris Kremers were bleached. Two girls, bones in the same area.
Okay, hang on a minute. Just beep, beep,
Yeah.
beep. Back up a bit. So how did they obviously were able to run DNA tests on Lizette's because you said there was still skin on the bone?
Yes, there was still skin on Lizanne's bones. I don't know how they tested Chris's.
Well, unless they went into the marrow, that would be the only way you could, and even then, you might only get mitochondrial. Back then,
Well,
mitochondrial, yeah,
but
could.
All in all, they only found about 10% of Lizanne's remains and only 5% of Chris's.
So,
A local anthropologist said there were no marks on any of the bones, no tool marks, no sign of cut, no sign of animal marks or anything like that.
Can't figure out COD like this. No.
But so very little remains were found. The odd thing is that how come one girls were at one stage of decay and one girls were at another?
It might not be necessarily decay related. I'm thinking that it was probably some kind of acetone or acid bath that one of them was dipped in.
Well, actually, that one, I was going to go into this one later. Chris Kremers' bones contain phosphorus, which was not part of the local soil of the area. So there's no idea how the phosphorus got into them.
Does lye have phosphorus in it?
I don't know. I didn't look that one up. I'm sorry.
Well, no, why would you? I just thought.
Yeah.
Were they found in a cenote?
Cenote? No.
That says yes.
So those were the remains, and that's all really the information on the remains on it.
Sorry, I swallowed my spit.
Where this case gets really confusing is when you start looking at electronics. So
Electronic data can tell you a lot, and I'm assuming that they would have pinged their cell phones at some point.
So they found two phones. One was the iPhone 4, one was the Samsung Galaxy S3. So the phones were sent off to forensic analysis in Netherlands, and they were put through a whole ringer. So it was found that the girls had tried 7 times to contact emergency services between April 1st and 3rd. And they did this by either dialing 112, which is the Dutch number for emergency services, which automatically gets relayed over to 911.
Right.
And they also did dial 911. So the first call was on April 1st, an emergency phone call at 4:39 in the afternoon on the iPhone. And on the Samsung at 4:52, a call was tried again. So that was on the April 1st, the first day they were out. Their camera, they had been taking pictures of their hike, and around almost close to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, their pictures, they're happy, they're smiling. Sometime between the last picture they took just before 2 p.m. and 4:39, something happened.
Well, it's very similar to Delphi.
It is. So we get even more because we got more days of this.
Am I putting up any pictures yet?
Not yet.
Oh,
Sorry, you'll get a whole bunch of pictures at the same time. Sorry.
no.
I'm sorry. So on April 2nd, the second day the girls were lost, the iPhone tried emergency services around 8:14 in the morning. The Samsung tried around 6:58 and also around 10:52 in the morning. Both phones would occasionally get turned on to check for signal. They'd be turned on quickly. They'd be on for like less than a minute, which isn't actually enough time for the phone to really know if it's gotten a signal. But the phone would turn on quickly and then be turned off.
Probably battery.
Yes. Now, both girls, when they started the hike, both girls had they only had around 50% battery on each phone.
Ooh, never started a hike with 50%. Always had full charge.
They had only planned this hike to be an afternoon hike. That was all it had meant to
Yeah,
be.
but I still think I would make sure my phone's fully charged.
They didn't have food. They didn't have extra water. They didn't have a compass. They didn't have extra clothing. They had nothing for survival. They had nothing for if they got caught out there. So the phones on at around 1:50 on April 2nd, the Samsung actually connected briefly to emergency services, but only for about 1 or 2 seconds. And then the call was dropped. See, their reception out there was really bad. And they didn't have a satellite phone, so they weren't getting through. This was up in the wilderness. The phone, on the night of April 2nd, the Samsung was actually left on the whole night long. And on April 3rd, the iPhone again tried dialing emergency services. And the Samsung again tried these were early morning, between 7 and 9 in the morning. On April 4th, the iPhone is only doing signal checks, no dialing out. The Samsung did a quick signal check, and at 5 in the morning, the battery died on the Samsung. So now all they have left is the iPhone. On April 5th, the iPhone starts turning on and off, checking for signal, and it turns on at around 10:50 a.m. The iPhone is turned on to check for a signal and turned off. Then, at 1:37 in the afternoon, the iPhone is turned on again to check for a signal, but the person doesn't enter the correct PIN. The 10:50 time that it was turned on that morning on the 5th was the last time anyone was able to enter a PIN into the phone and
So
properly
what was it,
turn it on.
10:50?
10:50 a.m. on April 5th. And that was the last time the PIN was entered correctly. After that, on April 6th, there were signal checks with the iPhone, and then nothing for a few days. And then on April 11th, the iPhone was turned on at 10:51 a.m., did a signal check. Again, no PIN was entered. There were over 70 times the phone was turned on and off without a PIN between April 5th and April 11th.
Now
Between April 7th and 10th.
Phone?
That was Chris's phone.
Okay, well, that leads me to believe that maybe she died first, and Lizanne was trying to use her phone but didn't know the PIN number.
Right.
That's one theory. I'll get to my other theory later.
And on April 11th, when the phone was turned on, it was left on for over an hour and then turned off with 22% battery left. And that was the last time anyone accessed the phone before it was found in June. So the thought is that by April 6th, that Chris was unconscious or dead, since the PIN was never entered after that, just like you'd said.
Yeah.
But even in 2014, the emergency calls could be made without a PIN. You could dial without having to put in the PIN.
Not everybody knows that, though.
Right. Might not have known it then, and Lizanna might not have known the PIN. One thought is that Lizanna stayed with Chris's body or stayed with her while she was ill, but eventually left and placed some markers to try and find her way back, but was not able to do that. That's what some pictures are thought to be. There's a lot of unknowns with this.
Yeah, I'd say.
So the Samsung phone was logged off with a battery of 41% at 1:40 on April 1st. But by, I wrote this in 24-hour time, so I'm having to translate it off.
Next time, don't do that.
I'm used to
I hate 24 hours.
Okay, by 5:40 in the afternoon, the battery had dropped to 19%. This is a massive battery drop that has not been explained. This is more of a loss than the whole morning of her browsing, calling, searching, doing all sorts of things with it. This loss, and there's no sign that the phone was used there's no sign that videos were done or photos or anything else. There's no sign of what that 20 plus battery drain could have been.
Supernatural.
GPS.
Ghost.
Would the GPS have been there in 2014?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, their GPS did do a number
you
of
could
pings.
ping off towers, right?
So the other, Chris, on her iPhone on April 2nd, she actually went into the settings, and they're able to see all this. The forensic analysis can go through everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, I learned through that all Delphi.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anything you delete, by the way,
it's not.
Keep telling that to Nancy.
But so on April 2nd, Chris went into her iPhone. She'd always has her set up where it needed 2 PIN codes to access it. 1 PIN code to turn the phone on, and the second PIN code was the SIM PIN code, and you needed that in order to send any message or call or do anything. She'd always had it set up that way, but on the second, she went in and changed a setting so that only 1 PIN would have to be entered from there on in. Reports have often said that the phone couldn't be used because the PIN wasn't entered correctly. It was the SIM PIN that wasn't being entered. The PIN to open the phone had been allowed open. As of April 2nd, she'd changed that. what's interesting, though, is that none of those changes were done on the Samsung phone. Chris did it on her phone, but Lizanne
Well,
didn't do it on hers.
If anybody's like Matt and I have an iPhone, he has a Samsung. My phone has a pin. His phone does not. So...
Oh, yeah, tell everybody.
Well, yeah,
Mine doesn't have a pen. Mine's an iPhone, but I couldn't.
Yeah, you can turn it on and off.
Yeah.
It's up to the person. So there's a good chance that Lizanne didn't want a pin on her phone.
Right.
She wanted easier access. Now I don't even mind having a pin because you just use the facial
Right.
recognition or the fingerprint
So-
thing, right? So it's like...
The other thing is Chris went in and she changed
have that.
settings to maximize the usage and reception that the iPhone would get, but the Lizanne did not do that with the Samsung.
Right.
So
Samsung also died first. So.
the Samsung died first, but Lizanne or Chris changed the settings on the iPhone very early into them going missing. What it does look like from looking at the phone usages, it looks like it wasn't two people each using a phone. It looks like one person had both the phones. No, all the calls were staggered. It was almost like the Samsung was used the most for the first 2 days. And then when it died, they switched to using the iPhone. And it wasn't as though, here, you call on your phone, I'll call on mine. We'll
Right.
both try and get through. It was one phone would call, and then the next phone would call 10 minutes later to try and get through to emergency services.
There's also that whole, okay, well, your phone didn't reach... Oh, look, mine's got a signal. Maybe shit.
Right.
And it may only be temporary, so they try right away with that phone as soon as they see a signal. And then the signal could get dropped before they even get anywhere.
Yeah.
You move 1 inch to the right or
The-
to the left, you're fucked.
And a kind of unknown controversy on this one, as with many, are that the forensic analysis shows that the phones had files created on April the 10th around 5 a.m. But there's no sign the phones were even turned on at that point. They don't know where these files came from. It looks like there was something happened on these phones. This was even after Samsung's battery had died.
Even the Samsung, not just iPhone?
Even the Samsung. It was as though...
I was going to say the cloud, but that wouldn't work with Samsung.
Yeah, it was no calls or messages or anything happened on these phones, but yet there were little hidden files that showed a log entry, but yet the phone wasn't turned on. So they don't really know where these ones came from. But April the 10th, the phones hadn't really been touched for days on that one.
So there's no pictures or videos taken after they took that one on the first.
So this is the phones. They didn't seem to use the phones to take pictures. So the
Okay.
phones had no pictures or video. But Lizanne had a camera
Right.
with a SD card, and they found that. So that's where I was going to go on this
Okay.
one.
No, I'm just asking because
So
usually when you do even one picture or even a voice note or something, it will log it as a file entry in your
right. These
deep,
were
dark recess of your phone, right?
these unknown files created on April 10th look like they came from WhatsApp. So whether or not it was done like by a brief GPS signal got through and WhatsApp tried to communicate, they don't really know. And unfortunately, the forensic analysis didn't go too much into these ones. They were just kind of an ad mention.
Well, WhatsApp is supposed to be anonymous. It's supposed
Yeah.
to be a safety.
So those
way
were
to
the issues
communicate.
with the phones, where how did this happen? Like they couldn't get any reception. There were so many calls going out, then the pin not getting entered, but the phones weren't really used for anything else that they can tell. Like they didn't record a video on their phones. They didn't take pictures on their phones while they were lost. To me, I think if I'm lost and I have my phone, I'm going to record a video to my loved ones. I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to do something as a message to them in case it's found. But there was nothing on there. Nothing.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm having a hard time thinking that this is all natural because you did find the clothing.
Yep.
Unless it was like that hypothermia thing where when you think you're hot, you're actually freezing and you start taking your clothes off.
Yeah, but that was, there's still too much else. So the camera photos.
Okay.
All right. So the photos recover.
Is my time?
Pay attention.
My time?
Your time will be very, very soon.
Oh, come on.
Very,
Pay
very
attention.
soon.
Oh,
Pay
come
attention.
on.
So in all, there were 133 photos found on the SD card.
They were showing you all of them. No, I'm
So
just kidding.
photo number 1.
Yay, that's me. Woo.
Photo 1.
Okay, it's up.
Okay, so the photos start. The photos really tell a story because they start showing here. Poor Sarah can't see the picture.
No, I can't
so-
see the fucking pictures.
All right. Do you want to see the picture?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is photo 1.
It's the thumbs up one, right?
Yeah, that's the thumbs up one.
Yeah.
So the pictures tell a story because you can see the story being told. It starts with the two young women smiling, happy. They've reached the summit. They're on La Pinesta Trail, and they're having a great time. They're smiley, they're happy. They're having a good time on their hike. They reached the divide around 1 p.m. It was a beautiful day, and the views were gorgeous. They also, as you can see from pictures, they packed light. They didn't have much on them in terms of clothing. They weren't carrying much, just a really lightweight backpack, and that was it. But they were having a good time. Then, photo number 2. Then we start to see the pictures show Chris from behind and near a stream. And we start seeing these.
That looks like a cenote.
I don't even know what a cenote is.
What do
You have it right
I
there.
have it
Right
I
up.
want to make sure they're the same. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Ours is not as zoomed in as that.
No, it's because I
She
zoomed
in on, yeah.
Because I
yeah.
wanted to see what the hell she was
If you
doing.
put photo 3 up.
That one?
That one.
Okay.
That's a zoom in picture of Chris.
No. Photo 2.5 was.
Oh, sorry.
2.5 did not make it.
Okay.
So now I have the actual image 3 up.
Okay, image 3 then. So, image 3 shows Chris beside a stream.
Looks like going downhill.
Yes, yeah. So we start seeing this is Chris Kremers from
me.
behind.
I can't see. Yeah.
So now that's, and now
I just want to look at her boots for a minute.
she was actually wearing okay hiking boots, I think.
No, it wasn't that. I wanted to see what kind of boots. How would they have easily have fallen off?
No, they were
No,
both. They
they're-
actually, despite not being massively prepared, they were wearing good hiking boots.
Yes.
Yeah, they were doing. They wore good hiking boots.
And that was at 154.
Yes, that was at 154. So, photo number 4. So, photo number 4, this is the last picture taken.
Just on the other side of the screen.
Just on the, and this is picture number 508. On that, all the pictures were numbered on the camera. So this is 508. This one's caused a lot of thoughts between people because the look on her face, many feel that she looks anxious. So photo number 5.
Yeah.
Many feel that Chris looks anxious, like she's not as happy anymore, and like something might be going wrong. So that was the last picture taken. Then 2 hours, just over 2.5 hours later, the first call to 911 was made.
Yeah, there's definitely something wrong.
Something seems off.
The brow is furrowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it's not a casual flirty like hi. It's a what the fuck.
yeah. It's a little bit of fear. The camera was not used again until April 8th. At this point, more than 90 pictures are taken in the darkness. The series of pictures were between 1 to 4 a.m. in the morning on April 8th. And there are many which are just like looking up at the sky. And you can see like little dots in the sky, like artifacts and things like that. You don't really know. Most of the pictures make absolutely no sense, but there are some which are definitely make people curious. So, picture number, let's go 7.
Skipping 6.
Yeah, I'll go back to 6, no big deal. Okay, so picture number 7. This was image number 550, and it shows twigs with plastic. Now, what local guides have pointed out, that was a way to collect water. Those plastic bags with the rainforest, you could use that to collect water.
Yeah, because it's extra
Yeah.
caution. That was 1:39 in the morning. Okay.
Yeah. Photo number 6. This one, a lot of people see something in it which I don't see. This is face looking down into a ravine. Many people feel that at the bottom of the ravine you can see a body, which is where that
This?
red... Yeah, you'll see a red square in there, and that's where people think there's a body in there. No matter how much you enhance it, you can never get it so that you can actually really truly see what's there.
To be honest with you, I don't think it's a body. I think it's more foliage.
That's my
It
thought
looks
too.
more foliage to me.
That's my thought
Either
too.
that or it's an apparition. It's not an actual body. Don't laugh. They do like forest walks too, you know.
Yeah.
No, to me that is definitely not a body. It's foliage of some sort.
One idea on this one is that Lizanna was taking a picture of where Chris's body had fallen, and so as a way to try and find her way back. That's what many people have felt with this one.
Honestly, I think that would be an overreach because even though it's pixelated,
Yeah.
there would be more clarity, I think, to it, especially using the flash.
Yeah.
You'd have some more definition. Because her shirt, she was wearing a red shirt. There's no red in that picture.
No.
And if that was her body and she still had her red shirt on, you would still see that.
So, pictures 8.
So I just debunked that Reddit.
Okay, shut 6 off. 8's on.
Picture 8 is an odd one. You can't really tell too much from it.
Looks
If
like
you
a
go to
trail cam.
photo 9,
We just got to 8.
I'm sorry. It's just to show you where the zoom up is.
It looks like a trail, it looks like one of those trail cams that you find.
What they found from this one is you can see a bunch of objects were strewn out on a rock, including a strap, which could likely be from the backpack, a reflective object, and a bunch of paper. And in fact, some of the paper people have actually been able to match it up to a map that Chris and Lizanne had in pictures of them taken before they even got to Poquete. So it was likely in their backpack and they used it up for something. But so there was that picture taken, and then photo number 10. Photo number 10 is the one which has made most people think. It's believed to be the back of Chris Kremer's head, and it actually, in the bottom of it, it looks like there might be some blood stains.
I will let you know.
No one saw you make the face.
Some believe the hair is actually over top of somebody's face and that you can see a nostril through the hair, but it is really kind of difficult and can be reaching.
So I'm zooming in on it and I'm not really seeing what looks like any type of blood staining. What I'm seeing is a lot of discoloration because you're up so close that it's bringing up the pigmentation.
The thought is that down in the bottom right
here.
that there's a bit of blood. It's really hard to tell.
No, I'm going to say it's just part of the skin reflecting beneath it in the darkness. The thing is that you think there would be more of a way to determine where that was taken and who it might be.
So these were the pictures. Now remember, there were like over 90 pictures taken in the dark, and many are just shooting in all different directions. A lot of questions have been...
Sarah, your pendant's reflecting.
Which one?
The one on your neck.
Which one? I'm wearing 2.
I don't know, the round one. The big one.
This one?
No, the higher up one.
It's not this. That's the small one.
Okay, well, it's still reflecting. That's not the...
It's a moonstone. I can't help it. Blame her.
Okay, where was I?
It's the hair. You're talking about the hair.
Okay.
Picture
So the
10.
pictures, all of them being taken. The questions are, why were the pictures taken? Many have put forth maybe they were taken by the girls to light their way, but if you're in a dark forest at night and all of a sudden the flash from a camera, it's just going to blind you. It's not going to show you anything.
You use a flashlight up front. Feature.
It's not really going to show much. So then, was it taken to signal somebody? Did they hear somebody and wanted to signal with the camera? Because it took so many pictures so quickly in the dark on this one night. And then many of the pictures, some of them look like it could be landmarks. Is she trying to guide herself back? The thought was maybe Chris had passed away, and that was, she took a picture of her friend, the hair. She took a picture of the area where she had died in the hopes that she'd be able to find her way back to her afterwards. At this point, though, Lizanne likely had a broken foot and a broken pelvis, according to her remains. So I don't know how far she would have gotten. The pictures are very confusing. The other thing is the camera hadn't been touched for, let's see, what did I say it was? It was brought out on... sorry, I lose dates on this one.
It was like,
April 8th.
Yeah.
So between April 1st and the 8th, for 7 days, the camera was not touched. Why was the camera not touched for 7 days? And then suddenly this flurry of activity and done.
It doesn't really make sense.
And it gets even worse. So there's actually a site, a blog it's called Imperfect Plan, and this guy has he's bought the exact camera. He's gone to the area, taken pictures. He's done so much background information on this. His blogs, I couldn't even understand half of it. I'm a graphic designer with knowledge of some of this stuff, but it was really intense. If anyone's interested in looking into it. when the memory card was sent to the Dutch authorities, they found 133 photos which were taken on or after April 1st, 7 videos, which none of them were taken after April 1st, so they were all taken before they went missing. Recovery software found 64 images and 4 videos that had been deleted or overwritten. And looking at the EXIF data, some of the images had been altered in some way before they got to the Dutch authorities. This could have just been that they were rotated from portrait to landscape, or that a file name had changed, whatever. But
the simplest explanation is usually the explanation.
What's not known, though, is did the Panama authorities alter and go through the photos, change them before they got to the Dutch authorities?
Well, I'm going to go on a limb and say, yeah, they did, but maybe not in a necessarily a conspiratorial way. Like you said, they probably opened these files up, put them when you move them, it's moving evidence. So you're going to change it in some way, and if you flip them around or change the view a little bit, yeah, you're altering them. It doesn't mean that they're doing it in a nefarious way, but you're also looking at Panama is a tourist place, and they don't want the bad rep.
It went out of focus.
Okay.
That was Matt's hand.
No, it's still out of focus.
Oh.
Is it still?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Everything just went all out of focusy.
Maybe you just took your glasses off. Oh, you don't wear any.
Is it back in focus?
No.
TT shot.
Well, maybe start wrapping it up. I don't know, because it won't. I don't know. It's.
Well, if people can stand it being blurry for a little bit,
Just treat it like a podcast.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. The thing is, one photo is missing. Photo number 509. A picture that goes between the last photo then before they made the emergency call and the photos taken at nighttime. 509 was between the two, and it's gone. It was deleted somehow.
But just keep going. Don't
Okay,
worry about me. I'm
all right.
worrying about the camera.
So a lot has been looked into about what happened to this picture. It was taken sometime between April 1st at 1:54 p.m. and April 8th at 1:29 a.m. That's a pretty big window for this one picture to have been
That is a
taken.
very big window.
Now, interesting thing, the girls did tend to group the photos together. They didn't just take one picture at a time. They took a bunch, which is what most of us did with digital cameras. So
Still do with their own phones.
why is there just this one picture? What could it be? There are some ideas. It might never have existed. Might have been a camera glitch, but that's a less than 0.007% chance of that happening.
Doesn't mean it can't.
Doesn't mean it can't, but it's a very unlikely.
But yeah,
and very unlikely.
and that's the one after she was kind of looking back with a weird look on her face.
It's one that's between the last photo that was of Chris Kremers looking back at the camera, and then the photos of the nighttime done on April 8th. So photo number 509. Now, it could have been deleted by Lisanne or Chris or anybody else who had the camera before it was found. It might have been deleted by the user. Not the easiest thing to do, and you can't do it by accident. This man who runs, his name is Chris, he runs Imperfect Plan. He has gone in through so much work, trying to even figure out, he's looked at the data parsing on the SD card and all that. He feels that what it really looks like is that the missing file was either taken and then deleted before the next picture was shot, or it was deleted from a computer. So either somebody got the files on the SD card on the computer and deleted it, or Lisanne and Chris deleted it before they started taking pictures on April 8th. Or before whoever took the pictures. It might have been somebody else on April 8th taking the pictures. The one thing, and I remember doing this, when the data card was loaded in and all the pictures were, what happens is the computer will automatically make a thumbnail for each picture.
Right.
The thought is maybe the Panama authorities, when they were going through, they were deleting the thumbnails. They might have accidentally deleted the thumbnail and the actual image for picture 509 by accident.
Yes.
But we don't know.
Or we go on and say that we don't know the COD, the cause of death, but we can probably surmise that the method of death is possibly homicide. So let's say for heaven's sake, that the manner of death was homicide. So the person who could have deleted that might have been on that.
Now, so just because I don't want to take this like for 2 hours or whatever, but there is so much stuff. For the forensics that were done between all the electronics and the bodies and that, the Panama and Dutch authorities cooperated a lot. The Dutch authorities did most of the forensics, and they actually examined the belongings in the backpack and ran DNA samples on them. Most gave no usable DNA. One sample that they came across was actually it was one of their employees. So that doesn't speak too well, but it was a DNA sample from one of their employees who'd done the testing. So
it happens.
It does.
Cross-contamination's gonna happen.
They did find from DNA taken from the cell phones, the cameras, all that, they found 2 samples from unknown women and 2 other unknowns, one of which was male. Interestingly, they didn't find very much at all of Chris or Lizanne's DNA.
Did they try to match these DNA to their hosts?
I don't know. The other problem with it is that the person in charge of the investigation in Panama was Betsaida Pitti, and I'm going to get that one wrong. Betsaida. She was a prosecutor and she was in charge in the investigation. Took over on April 14th. She forgot to fingerprint and test all witnesses and anybody involved in the search efforts or anything. Yeah. She's been roasted quite a bit throughout all of this.
That's the simplest thing, is to get at least the fingerprints.
They didn't have fingerprints or information from anybody involved in the search. They didn't even take it from the woman who turned in the backpack or anything. So they had no samples to go against. Yeah. So in the end, the Dutch concluded that what happened to the girls was an accident. They felt that the 2 ladies moved deeper into the mountains for an unknown reason. They kept going on and on. Eventually they came across a monkey bridge, which they tried to cross, and they fell, and then they couldn't get out of the ravine. That is what the Dutch concluded. Panama originally declared it a homicide or a kidnapping. Then they switched, and they also agree with they were lost. In fact,
there's so many familiars to
they even said that they changed it to that it was ruled a hiking accident, and made a comment about the girls being dragged to death in the river. So this doesn't really make sense at all, because the ravines, this is not an area way in backwards. This is actually an area which has quite a large population, a lot of tourists, a lot of people around, and people know the area. All of this area where they could have fallen, that monkey bridge idea, that was checked. Searchers went in with dogs. They checked that whole area. They would have found those girls if they had fallen there, and they didn't. Also, the families state the girls absolutely would not have walked across the monkey bridge without a professional with them. They weren't stupid. They wouldn't have done that. It doesn't make sense on it. So when you look through it all, there is so much going on. What happened to these 2 girls? Many feel that Chris died first, that Chris Kremers died first. This is from the picture of the hair, and also from the fact that her iPhone was not able to be unlocked after a certain date. So the thought is that she died first, and then Lizanne might have survived a few more days. But by this point, they had no food, very little water, and they'd been exposed. They might be injured. They could be delirious. Who knows what happened? The area is prone to flash floods, although at that time they were actually going through a bit of a drought, and there were no flash floods during that time. So that was one thing that the Dutch prosecutor said was likely to have happened. Most likely didn't. Some books have been written since that. Many will actually dive into what could have happened. Others will say it was absolutely a hiking accident. One of the most popular books is actually co-authored by Betsaida Pitti, who has quite a stake in this.
Of course, she's going to lose the case because she couldn't do her job.
Panama is a huge tourist industry.
Yeah.
They couldn't have tourists being killed.
Yeah.
They had to. That was a horrible thing for Panama to do. Since then, investigators who've gone, because many people have actually gone down, done the same hike, looked around. They've been searching for these girls for years. What they've found is that Lizana and Chris were not the only people to have gone missing. Many others have gone. More than 50 women have gone missing in that same 40-mile area of Panama. In fact, the UN calls it a shadow epidemic. Women, femicide. Women are being kidnapped and murdered. This area where Lizana and Chris went missing, many tourists have actually gone missing there before, but every single one has been found. Lizana and Chris were the
dead
first.
Dead or alive?
Both.
Okay.
Both dead and alive. But Lizana and Chris are the first that have never been found. We've only got just tiny fragments. 10% of one, 5% of another. Not enough. This actually leads to Kreme's, being as they only found 5% of Chris Kremer's body. There have been many claims that Chris Kremer's was unfortunately trafficked. People have said that. There have been claims about that over the years. The other thing, Lizana had asthma. She had asthma, and they did not find the asthma inhaler. So she would have had a very difficult time hiking up in there and trying to survive. The idea that these girls went missing on April 1st and April 11th was the last date the cell phone was used, that they're still alive then.
Is there any connection to other missing people who went missing in that area around the same time frame at different time, like different
not
years?
not so much links to other people, but there is one person that the internet really, because a lot of this is now done by sleuths online. This is a 11-year-old case now that has been ruled a accidental death that most people have written off. But the internet sleuths are hard at work at this. And one of the big things that they go on, I don't know if you remember me mentioning that on the 2nd, the tour guide went to their home to go look for them. And because they didn't show up for their tour. The tour guide's name was Feliciano Gonzalez. He is a big question mark within this case. Now, there will be some that say he had nothing to do with it, others who say he's guilty as all hell. We do not know. This is all just presenting what I have come across. I'm not saying he's done it or anything like this.
Probably the people who say he's guilty as all hell are the people who think that Casey Anthony didn't kill her daughter. Well, and it was the guy who found her body that
wait till you hear.
Saying.
Here's the information. So he's a local guide and expert on the area. His card was found in the women's room, and yes, he did go there. What was unknown is when he went to go look for the girls, why they didn't show up for their meeting with him, he was in their room for over half an hour. That's the big question. The other thing is the girl's key for their room was never found.
How did he get into the room?
That one I'm not too certain of. Some things have said someone let him in. Other things have said he used a key, but they didn't know where he got the key. That one, I don't know. There's too many conflicting stories on that one.
Any history of violence with this guy?
Yes.
Any background checks? Okay, let's hear this.
Yes. So he also apparently was one of the ones, he found many of the remains. Now, he is a local guide and an expert in the area. He knows where to find things. So that is understandable.
But to find
his
fragments?
Reputation is not good. Especially even his reviews on TripAdvisor and Yelp and that, because he is a well-known guide. One of the big comments in the reviews is, do not go with him if you are a woman alone. He's not safe to be with.
Is there any connection to him and the other missing people?
Don't know. Not really well known.
And this is all allegedly.
His reputation is that he is not good around women. The reviews say, do not go with him if you're a woman alone. You will not like it. He's been accused of touching women, you name it. He also had a stepson. And his stepson was in a local gang. And the gang has been suspected of numerous kidnappings and things. Now, his stepson is the only living survivor from the members of the gang. Everybody else from that gang is dead. Only his stepson is still alive. Yeah. So, That's why Feliciano Gonzalez is an unknown. There's a lot of things that could point to him, but we have no proof.
And probably because the prosecutor never got fingerprints or DNA from this guy.
Nope.
Right?
She didn't get anything.
Or his stepson.
She didn't get anything.
Yeah, she got fuck all.
Chris's parents, like I said, Chris's parents went on the hike, like the same hike the girls did, and they made a video of it. From it, you can see that getting lost on day one is almost impossible. The path is well marked. And on top of it, when you're at the summit and you look out, you can see the road. You can see the town. You can't go the wrong direction. And you know that if you go the wrong direction, the wrong direction is up a hill. The right direction is down a hill. It's not hard to figure out. And it is extremely well marked. Now, the Pianista Trail, getting lost on it's almost impossible because it is so well known. It is marked so well. And the girls knew. They knew, and they'd even told their parents this, that, yeah, when we go on it, we got to make sure to go out the exact same way we came in. Just follow our way back and everything all good. Somehow they veered off. Somehow they went off the trail and into the mountain woods, and we don't see them again. We have... The claim has been made by many of the locals that no one has ever been lost on the Pianista Trail. But these two have. And we don't know. Sorry, my dog's deciding to move around.
He's making out with my husband.
Yeah. The other part is no skulls were found. And skulls, when anthropologists and experts look at it and they think of the idea of predators, they're expecting to find a skull because, or at least parts of a skull, because the skull is a part that an animal can't digest, and it really can't eat the whole skull. So, Tuesday, I apologize.
Okay, so let me throw this at you.
Okay.
There's no skull, no hands. All you have are feet. People don't usually log their feet print.
There's just one foot.
There's no fingerprints from these. I think we're looking at, in my estimated theory, this is just a theory, is we're looking at a cartel.
Yeah.
Probably involved in human and sex trafficking to the point where the girls weren't cooperative. They were fighting back. Maybe they killed them, and then to hinder possible easy identification, they took the head and the hands.
Yeah. Looking at this, very few people who delve into the case actually believe that it was a hiking accident and natural causes. There's too much else going on. The big questions I know for me when looking at it is, why was the camera not used for 7 days? Why were the phones, why did they not record something on them? But if somebody took their phones away and took their camera away and can use it. The other thing is the backpack found in almost perfect condition.
Yeah.
It had not been out there
as
for 10 weeks.
As a red herring. And I think the photos are probably just that. They're just there to say, hey, this camera was used, so they were still alive. It's to throw authority off.
Yeah.
No, I would definitely say the manner of death is homicide, but the cause of death is unknown. Probably blunt force trauma is my guess. But that's just speculation because we don't have a body, we don't have skulls, we don't have anything. We don't know. So, but I mean, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're either gonna, if it's cartel, you're gonna use guns. If it's a sex act or a R-word or something that gone wrong, they're going to use a rock or something nearby. It's not going to be necessarily premeditated like a cartel hit. And if there's other instances of kidnappings and stuff there
have been numerous instances of kidnapping and of the women being held and used and tortured and in some cases killed. The poor families, Chris Kremers and Lisanne Flynn's families who have to deal with this, they were actually upset when the photos that were taken were all released to the public. Those were their daughter's last few moments.
Okay, I understand, coming as a parent, I understand that you would want those kept private. But at the same time, if it can help push the case forward by asking the public for help. And
they were upset in the beginning and then they realized this helps. The families have tried so much to try and find out what happened to these two young women who were so bright, so full of life, and they just wanted to help. And they wanted to learn and they wanted to help, and this happened. And We don't know what it is. It's such a mystery. The phones. Why was the pin? Now, the one I can never get is that, I guess the thing is, I think of you. If you and I are out together and I get injured or whatever, you are going to know my pin code and you're going to tell me yours. It's the fact, to me, I feel like it was not the girls who were using the phone when the pin code was entered wrong, because I feel like these two best friends who traveled across the world together, that they would have known each other's codes.
Yes.
I really do feel that.
Although, no offense, I'm horrible with numbers. I probably wouldn't remember.
Yeah,
after you told me.
That's actually that is one thing. In the point of the other side is that these girls, by the time the pin code was entered wrong, they'd been without food or water for a couple days, possibly injured.
Yeah.
Who knows? They could have been delirious.
Me. Yeah. So going back to that tour guide and his stepson.
Yes.
That's really nagging at me.
That's the one that nags at everybody.
It's nagging at me because there's so many elements to this crime that remind me of other cases we've covered or not covered. Like the data, like from the phones and the cameras is so Delphi. It hurts.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, even the picture of Chris looking back with pain, it kind of reminds me of that picture of Abby by herself on the bridge. But she's not, if you actually look close enough to that actual photo, bridge guy is behind her.
Right. Okay.
Right? Because they released the video and released the video and you can see him. Anyways, and then there's elements of Ellen Greenberg where the authorities don't do their jobs. They're not collecting evidence. They're skipping over things because it's probably political. They don't want to upset the tourist industry. And then you've got a little bit, if you're going to go with the tour guide who has a sketchy past and a perversion to him, maybe he's revisiting the body sites that he put there, because why else would you be able to find these little fragments of bone? Because let's face it, they're not going to be easy to find and brush. So unless you know they're there. So is he revisiting the bodies? Is he having his way with them a la Ted Bundy?
But yet there's so many elements. There's so little of the bodies. There's not even enough to constitute as a body anymore.
But to him, or to the murderer, it would classify as a trophy.
Yeah.
And because now everybody knows serial killers take trophies, some of them don't.
But
they just revisit the bodies.
We go back to the state of the bones. Even if it's just a little piece. State of the bones, though. One girl's bones were bleached. The other girls were still much more fresh. Like, how did that separate in the same area?
Well, like I kind of stated, if it was an accidental death, Chris probably may have died first, and her bones would have bleached in the sun.
Yeah.
You got to take in the whole weather factor, too,
But she would have only died first by a couple days.
Right.
Not by 3 or 4 weeks. There's no way... If either one of them had been out there for 3 or 4 weeks, somebody would have found them. This isn't backwater, no one living there. There are a lot of locals and there's a lot of tourists. People are around, and those search teams went everywhere, and they brought dogs and they went everywhere.
Okay, this is my theory, my official theory. They were murdered, but they were taken off the trail, kidnapped, probably trafficked. They weren't good enough. They were killed, and their bodies were dumped back there. And then the backpack was probably placed. The pictures were probably taken to make it look like something. They were fine.
Well,
and it's a setup. It's a setup to make it look like an accident. Not very well done, because head and hands are missing. That's identification.
Well, and when you look at it, the phone,
I'm so tired. I'm so sorry. I'm yawning.
That's okay.
Not the case.
The iPhone.
I worked all night.
When it was finally turned on again on April 11th, it was turned on for an hour and nothing was done on it, and then finally turned off permanently at 22% battery. Did somebody turn it on hoping to let the battery die out? And it just took too long.
Well, that's hypothetical. You kill somebody and you're stuck with their phone, but you don't want them to know. You don't want the time of death. You want to throw it off.
Exactly.
And you have their phone. Are you going to turn it on and off at random times and watch a YouTube video so it looks like they're watching a YouTube video?
Yep. You're trying to use it or do something. It's
you want it to ping.
There is so much with this case, which is we don't know. Yeah. We do not know what happened, but whatever it was, these two young ladies are gone.
Yes.
And it's so sad what happened to them that we don't know, and the family doesn't get that full closure. There's always that question.
There's no such thing as closure, especially in murder cases for families. It's not
closure. Closure's the wrong word.
Basically, they're just wanting answers, and they want to be able to bring the rest of their children home, like their girls home. Yeah. And they want justice. Yes. Justice is the closest thing to closure you're going to get. But you can't get that if the work is shoddy.
There have been, I did read some reports that there was a case brought against the government of Panama from the parents, a civil case, but it was ruled against. They didn't win, and it was dismissed. And it's pretty difficult to get any information on these cases, being as they're all written in a different language and that. So, and trying to wade through some of the information can be there is a lot of information out there. A lot of people have gone on this hike and photographed the areas they believe are a lot of people have put a lot of work into trying to find out what happened to Lizanne and Chris.
And hopefully one day we'll have those answers. We need more. We need
That's
more.
Exactly it.
And by more, I'm sorry to say, we need more of them.
Yeah.
We need something. They need the authorities need something to go on more. I would prefer Panama not botch any more evidence coming in. Because let's face it, when it comes down to it, it's the forensics and the investigation that is going to finish the story of what happened to these girls in a tragic way. And either way, it's tragic, whether it's an accident or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good case.
But that's the Dutch girls in Panama.
I have a lot of questions, but I can't formulate them right now. Because, like I said, there was a lot. So
there's a lot.
I have a page of notes, and I can't even read it because my pencil sucks on this paper. And half of the time, I'm scribbling over other scribbles, and I'm making arrows this way, and I'm like, yeah, I can't even fucking read that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We don't know, but it is one of these very intriguing cases. I first came across it probably about 3 years ago, and got fascinated with it, and then now I did the deep dive, and there are sites out there, I believe we'll put up the links to them, that where they really deep dive into some of this stuff. If you want to read about all the parsing of the SD card, it's there. Yeah.
All right. Well, if anybody out there knows anything about Lizanne, sorry, my bad, and Chris and their disappearance, please make sure you contact the proper authorities. And that is it for tonight. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.